Welcome back. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. When it comes to roofing, make sure the people doing the work are licensed and insured. Make sure you're getting a free roof inspection. Make sure the financing is going to be easy. Well, you get all those things when you turn to Daniel Hood Roofing. Visit danielhoodroofing.com today. You can read more about them and all the things that they offer. I got an email last week right after the show from somebody saying they visit all of our clients, which I appreciate. Thank you. So many of you do that. They specifically said just had a new roof put on by Daniel Hood Roofing. And they were very, very happy with it. danielhoodroofing.com. Okay. Like I said earlier, I had a buddy that was talking to me this week and said, what is an SEC school after all this expansion? And I thought, well, that's pretty good. Let's see if we can come up with something. So I went through a million categories. And anything where there was a vast majority, one way or the other, I said, okay, we'll leave that in. And here's what you got. 15 of the 16 SEC schools, this includes Texas and Oklahoma, are public schools. Only Vandy is private. 15 of the 16 have a total enrollment over 21,000. Guess who doesn't? 15 out of 16, not 15 out of 15, have football stadium capacity over 60,000. All right, 15 out of 16 would prefer a football title. This is a little bit of my reading into it, but only Kentucky, I think, would choose a basketball title over a football title. 14 out of 16 are in towns smaller than 315,000. So they're all kind of one-horse towns, most of them. 12 of the 16 have endowments below $2.7 billion. Okay, so these aren't huge money institutes. They've all got big money, but they're not, the Yales and the Harvards and the Ohio States. 11 of the 16 are not members of the AAU. Now, these are not positive negatives. Obviously, being an AAU member, that's the highest you can get in terms of academic research institutions. So that would be a good thing. But 11 of the 16 SEC teams are not. 10 of the 16 are land-grant universities. Just another random thing. So let me show you. What is an SEC school? Who fits the list? Take a look at this. All right, there were 8 categories there. 6 schools fit all 8 of those categories. Arkansas, Auburn, Georgia, Mississippi State, LSU, and Tennessee. Those are, look around, those are your brothers and sisters in arms. Those are the most like you in terms of those. And then you got Alabama, which isn't a land-grant institution. Florida is an AAU member, which is good. Kentucky likes basketball. Missouri, why did I have them out? I forget. They're an AAU member. Ole Miss and South Carolina, not land-grant, but they get 7 out of 8. So right there, you've got 12 SEC schools that are pretty much similar. Oklahoma and Texas A&M, pretty close to being similar. They're pretty close. They fit. Texas A&M has a huge endowment. So does Oklahoma. Those are both a lot of oil money there, so there's big money there. Then you get Texas. Doesn't really fit. In Vanderbilt, the only one they scored on maybe is the one where I said they prefer a football title over a basketball title. I think they'd prefer any title. But it's interesting. If you asked me, 2 teams that really don't fit, it's Texas and Vanderbilt, and this system kind of says that, which I thought was interesting. Texas is just not like the SEC. It's a huge city. It's the biggest city in the SEC now, certainly not a one-horse town. Their endowment, in terms of the money at Texas, this is incredible. If you add up the 16 schools, Texas accounts for almost half of it, the total endowment of the SEC. That's how much money is in Texas, which is one of the reasons they try and run and then break up every conference they go to. So beware of Texas. All right, so I wanted to play along here. Everybody's talking expansion and stuff. Who would fit the mold? So I looked at some of these schools in the states that surround the SEC. Who would fit those 8 criteria we were talking about? Well, there are 4 schools that fit them like a glove. Clemson, Oklahoma State, Virginia Tech, and West Virginia are just like the Tennessee, LSU, Georgia, those that I showed you at the top. Florida State and Texas Tech would also be very, very close to fitting all of it. No, me either. They both fit everything that the SEC does except for one category each. Then you got down Louisville, NC State, really, Virginia, no. Miami, North Carolina, Notre Dame, Wake Forest don't fit. Georgia Tech, Tulane, and then Duke would be just another Vanderbilt. It's just a fun little exercise. So if you did this, if you created an SEC of just similar institutions, there are 20 schools that scored either a 7 or an 8 or a 6. Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Clemson fits, Florida State fits, Georgia, Kentucky, LSU, Mississippi State, Missouri fits, Oklahoma fits, Oklahoma State would fit, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas A&M fits. Texas Tech surprised me. Virginia Tech, West Virginia. So anyway, those are the 20 schools. That's not how anybody's going to build a conference. It's all about money. It's about brand. It's about cable. It's all
That
these
wouldn't
things.
be a bad conference.
But it's kind of interesting. I don't want to go to 20, but I just thought that was interesting. That would be like-minded institutions, which when the conference was first founded, that was the idea. It was these schools that all had something in common. Now you've lost that. Vanderbilt never fit, but there is something quaint about the idea that we all kind of view things the same way. We're all built the same way. There's not going to be Texas standing over here saying, we're worth a whole lot more money. Our vote should count for twice, which they will do. Vanderbilt should be thrown out. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
It is interesting.
And I do like that conference. I think 20 is going to be a number that's not unreasonable here shortly. You don't want it to be, but I think it will be.
Maybe.
This begs the question, why was Vanderbilt put in the SEC in the first place?
That is a great question. How they survived.
I mean, maybe they were winning 4 or 5 games in football back then.
That was before the general arrived.
Yeah.
Well, the SEC formed after Newland got here.
33
Here in
or so.
Knoxville.
Yeah.
Is the hotel still downtown?
Yeah,
Is
I
it
think
still
it
there?
is.
Okay, it's
Yeah.
one of the ones that's still down.
Andrew Johnson, I think.
Yeah. That's it.
So if you have already like-minded universities and they can't come together and agree on anything, what happens when you bring in schools that are not
And
like-minded?
see, that's an interesting point because in the past, the SEC, or maybe you just had commissioners who made it look like they all agreed, but they all eventually got on the same page. Again, not to rehash last week, but I don't remember this kind of. I can't remember anything dragging on the way the schedule thing has dragged on. And the bigger you get, and the more you look at it, it does get more unwieldy. So, would you be better off trading Texas Tech for Texas? Not in terms of TV or anything, but just in terms of peace.
Yeah.
Or at least Texas Tech for Vanderbilt, maybe.
I'd be okay with that. So anyway, just interesting stuff. When we come back, here's another one that's an interesting way of looking at things. People look at, all right, who your permanent rival is going to be in football if it's 3, and then you've got permanent rivals now in basketball. You've got 2 of those. What if you had to combine it? What if Tennessee had 3 permanent rivals in football and men's basketball? Okay, some are good in basketball, some are good in football. Who do you choose? We'll look at that next. Who are Tennessee's 3 biggest rivals, period? Come on back.
Seriously.